Manual cars are disappearing fast, and the cheap good ones will not sit around forever. A clean stick shift can avoid CVT drama, cut repair risk, and make a simple car feel alive again. Today, we are counting 10 manual cars worth buying before prices climb. Number 1 is the car people regret delaying the most. Number 10. Volkswagen Golf TDI Manual, 2010 to 2014. Diesel hatchbacks can feel bulletproof, but only when the emission story is clean, legal, and boring. We are looking at the 2010 to 2014 Volkswagen Golf TDI with the 6-speed manual, and I would only chase stock cars with Dieselgate paperwork, service records, and no backyard emissions delete. Under the hood is the 2-liter TDI diesel paired with a 6-speed manual that gives you the real reason this car belongs here. The manual avoids DSG service cost, keeps the drivetrain simple, and removes one expensive dual-clutch worry from the ownership plan. That matters because diesel repairs can already get costly when the wrong owner ignores warning lights. A clean manual TDI can run huge highway miles, but a neglected emissions car can become a painful lesson fast. Price range is usually $6,000 to $12,000 depending on mileage, body condition, service proof, and whether the emissions fix was done correctly. Scarcity is the other half of the argument. Manual diesel hatchbacks are already a niche, and clean legal cars are not getting easier to find. People who know them tend to keep them because they get torque, highway economy, and a real gearbox in one small package. Inspection is not optional. Test clutch slip in a high gear. Listen for dual mass flywheel rattle. Feel every shift. Scan for DPF readiness, EGR faults, soot load, limp mode history, and fuel system codes. Do not buy a car with missing emission pieces unless you want legal and inspection headaches. Also, ask how it was driven. Short-trip diesel life is hard on the DPF. These cars like highway heat, steady miles, and owners who understand diesel maintenance. Manual-specific tip. Change gearbox fluid, and stop resting your hand on the shifter like a lazy habit. That pressure wears parts over time. A good Golf TDI manual feels steady, torquey, and honest. A bad one smells like soot, has lights on the dashboard, and comes with a seller who says every code is normal. Walk away from that mess. The next one is slower, rougher, and easier to fix in a driveway. Number 9. Ford Ranger 2.3 manual, pre-2011. Small work trucks make sense when they are light, simple, and not trying to be luxury furniture. The pre-2011 Ford Ranger with the 2.3-liter 4-cylinder and 5-speed manual is not fast, not fancy, and not ashamed of it. We like XL or XLT 2-wheel drive work trucks with clean frames, stock suspension, and a boring owner story. The 2.34-cylinder makes modest power, and that is part of the charm. It does not beat the drivetrain to death. The 5-speed manual avoids automatic heat, keeps repairs direct, and turns a clutch job into a known expense instead of a transmission rebuild panic. Manual trucks are disappearing from new lots, and clean old Rangers are getting harder to find because contractors, homeowners, and cheap truck guys finally understand the math. A modern midsize pickup can cost $30,000 or more. A clean Ranger can still do hardware runs, dump trips, light hauling, and daily commuting for a fraction of that. The price range is usually $5,000 to $11,000, with clean, low-mile examples climbing. Inspection starts underneath. Check frame rust, cab corners, brake lines, bed mounts, rear leaf springs, and radiator support. Then test clutch engagement, gear grind, slave cylinder leaks, shifter slop, rear differential noise, and cooling system condition. If the clutch bites at the very top, budget work. If the shifter feels like a spoon in soup, look at the bushings. If the rear end howls at road speed, that cheap truck is getting less cheap. Flush clutch hydraulic fluid and change gearbox oil before shifts get notchy. These trucks reward basic care. They do not need fancy parts, dealership software, or a payment that makes weekend chores expensive. On the test drive, it should feel basic, honest, and steady enough at highway speed. It will be noisy. It will ride like an old truck. That is fine. What you do not want is heat creep, rust flakes, a slipping clutch, or mystery wiring under the dash. Buy the clean frame, not the shiny paint. The next one proves that a tiny hatch with a clutch can be more useful than people expect. If this straight manual talk helps you, subscribe. We show reliable stick-shift cars, costly traps, and simple checks before they disappear. Number 8. Honda Fit Manual, 2007 to 2013. Tiny cars get mocked until the cargo floor swallows half a garage, and the manual Honda Fit is a packaging miracle. We are looking at 2007 to 2013 Fit Base or Sport models with the 5-speed manual, preferably stock commuter cars with service records. The engine is a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder, and the manual gearbox keeps the little car light, responsive, and cheap to service. The manual helps longevity because it avoids small car automatic wear, gives the driver control on hills, and stops the transmission from hunting every time the cabin is full. This car is not powerful, but it uses space better than cars twice its size. Fold the seats, and suddenly it carries tools, boxes, groceries, dogs, or moving day junk that would embarrass a small sedan. That is why clean manual fits are getting grabbed. People finally understand the cargo trick, and scarcity is starting to show. Price range is usually $4,500 to $9,000, depending on rust, mileage, trim, and condition. A cheap crossover may look bigger outside, but a Fit can be cheaper to insure, cheaper to fuel, and cheaper to put tires on. Inspection is straightforward, but do not skip it. Check clutch bite, second gear feel, shifter bushings, axle clicks, hatch leaks, suspension noise, wheel bearings, air conditioning, and valve adjustment history. Listen for bearing hum at 40 to 60 miles per hour. Test the hatch and rear floor for water. Run the air conditioning at idle, because small Hondas still need working cooling fans and clean maintenance. Here is the garage truth. A manual Fit teaches you why small cars survive. Low weight means brakes last longer, tires cost less, and the clutch does not fight big torque at every stoplight. If the owner drove it gently, the drivetrain can feel younger than the odometer says. If the owner rode the clutch, launched it, or ignored valve noise, the car will tell on itself quickly during a warm test drive. Do not buy cute, buy proof, feel, and clean shifts, because tiny cars still punish lazy ownership every time. Use the correct Honda manual transmission fluid and adjust valves on schedule. These engines run best when the basics are handled before they complain. On the road, a good Fit should feel light, eager, and stable, not loose or rattly like a shopping cart. Street reality is simple. It is loud on the highway, small beside trucks, and not plush. But if you want a cheap manual that keeps ownership calmer while still hauling real stuff, this little Honda punches above its weight. The next hatch has Toyota bones hiding under a dead badge. Number 7. Pontiac Vibe Manual 2003 to 2008. Dead badges scare casual buyers, and that is why the manual Vibe is a secret, cheaper Toyota family play. We want 2003 to 2008 base cars with the 1.8-liter 4-cylinder and the 5-speed manual, preferably stock, boring, and not lowered by somebody who watched too many tuner videos. Under the skin, this thing shares the same kind of logic as the Toyota Matrix, but the Pontiac badge keeps prices calmer. That is the whole advantage. The 1.8 makes modest power, but paired with a manual, it feels more alive than the automatic, and it avoids old automatic wear completely. You're left with a clutch, gearbox oil, shifter bushings, and driver habits. Simple parts, simple checks, lower drama. Price range usually sits around $3,500 to $8,000, with clean, low-mile cars higher because people have finally figured out the Toyota connection. The manual specifically helps longevity because the drivetrain is lighter, direct, and easier to service. It also lets the little engine stay in its happy range without feeling totally lazy. In the shop, that means fewer mystery complaints and fewer expensive parts hiding inside the transmission case. Insurance usually stays calmer too, because this is not a sport compact with a loud reputation. That matters for a buyer who wants cheap ownership, not just a cheap purchase. Inspection starts with clutch slip in a high gear, then gear engagement, shifter slop, hatch leaks, rust, rear suspension mounts, wheel bearing hum, intake leaks, and water pump seepage. Fold the rear seats and lift the cargo floor, because hatchbacks hide water like a bad secret. Listen on the highway for a growl that changes with speed. That usually means bearings. Check the clutch bite. If it grabs at the top, budget a clutch. Change the gearbox fluid and replace worn shifter bushings before sloppy shifting turns every drive into a guess. A Matrix often brings Toyota tax, The Vibe can give similar ownership for less money, and that is why smart buyers should move before clean manuals vanish. The next compact is sharper, newer, and still simple enough to trust. Number 6. Mazda 3, 5-speed manual 2010 to 2013. Budget buyers chase Corolla and Civic first, so the manual Mazda 3 often sits there, looking cheaper, sharper, and more fun than it should. The sweet spot is 2010 to 2013 in sport or touring with a manual transmission. I like the 2-liter cars for lower drama, especially the Sky Active models when service records are clean. Some earlier cars use the MZR engine, while later Sky Active cars bring better efficiency and a more modern feel, but the key is the same: buy stock, maintained, and rust-free. The manual helps longevity because it avoids tired automatics, keeps the car responsive, and makes the engine feel stronger without adding complexity. No weird dual-clutch behavior. No CVT headache. Just clutch feel, gear oil, mounts, and driver skill. Price range usually lands around $5,000 to $11,000, depending on rust, mileage, sedan versus hatchback, and Sky Active status. Clean hatchbacks can bring more money because people want the cargo space. The scarcity argument is simple. Manual compact cars are fading fast, and good Mazda 3 manuals still cost less than many Civic manuals in a lot of markets. That gap will not last forever if buyers keep hunting simple cars. The inspection protocol matters. Check clutch take-up, second to third shift feel, motor mounts, rust around wheel arches, suspension clunks, wheel bearings, tire wear, and oil change history. A rough second to third shift is not charming. It is a warning. Bad mounts can make shifts feel worse than the gearbox really is, so look at engine movement when you ease on and off the throttle. Also, check the rear fenders and rocker areas if the car has been lived in salt. Use the correct manual transmission fluid and do not ignore motor mounts. A Mazda with fresh mounts and clean gear oil feels tight, smooth, and honest. A neglected one feels like every shift is arguing with you. Compared with a Corolla, this car often drives better. Compared with a Civic, it usually costs less. The manual also makes the car feel lighter on back roads, without making maintenance feel scary. That makes it a strong manual buy before the cheap, clean ones disappear. The next car is boring enough to be invisible, and that is exactly why. Number 5. Toyota Corolla, 5-speed 2009 to 2013. Boring becomes a weapon when the car is a reliable Corolla with a manual gearbox and no fancy tricks. We are talking about 2009 to 2013 Corolla base, LE or S models with the 1.8-liter 4-cylinder and 5-speed manual. Stay with the normal 1.8 car, not oddball trims that drag extra risk or price into the deal. The engine makes around 132 horsepower, which is not exciting, but that is the point. The drivetrain is lower stress, easy to understand, and cheap to keep alive. The manual helps longevity because it removes automatic shift flare, CVT worries, and dual-clutch nonsense. You have a clutch, fluid, mounts, shifter feel, and driving habits. That is a much simpler repair story for an older commuter. Price range usually sits around $5,000 to $10,000, with clean S trims and low-mile cars higher. Manual Corollas were never glamorous, so plenty disappeared into delivery work, commuter abuse, or cheap student ownership. Clean ones are quietly getting harder to find because people who want simple cars are waking up. The market used to ignore them. Now the people who hate car payments are starting to notice. Inspection starts with clutch slip, synchro grind, shifter feel, engine mounts, oil leaks, rust, tire wear, and recall status. Drive it cold and warm. Shift into every gear. Listen for grinding when you rush second gear. Watch the clutch bite point. Check for vibration at idle, because worn mounts can make a good car feel tired. Also, look at tire wear. Uneven edges mean alignment or suspension work, and that matters on a cheap car. Replace clutch hydraulics before they fail, and keep transmission fluid fresh. Do not wait until the pedal feels strange or the gears fight you. A Civic manual often costs more because of image and enthusiast demand. The Corolla gives cheaper insurance, energy, boring parts, and a simpler ownership path. Street truth, it will not impress anybody. It will just start, shift, commute, and save money while flashier cars ask for more attention. For a price-conscious buyer, that is not dull. That is smarter. One more Corolla rule. Avoid cars with burnt clutch smell, wet carpets, or owners who say manuals never need fluid. That attitude is how simple cars become costly. A clean 5-speed should feel boring, not abused, and boring is exactly what keeps it alive for years longer. The next one is shaped like a box, but the manual turns it into a cheap utility tool. Subscribe if you want smarter, used car picks without dealership smoke. We compare manuals, repairs, prices, and real ownership before you buy. Number 4. Scion XB Manual, 2004 to 2006. Boxy little cars get mocked until somebody loads one with tools, groceries, and a dog crate. Then the manual XB suddenly looks smarter, cheaper, and more useful than a small crossover. The first generation Scion XB from 2004 to 2006 is the one we want, especially stock 5-speed cars with normal wheels, normal suspension, and no hacked audio wiring hiding behind the dash. Under the hood is Toyota's 1.5-liter 1NZF WAO 4-cylinder, the same simple family logic that made small Toyota commuters survive abuse. The 5-speed manual helps because it keeps that little engine in its happy range and avoids the automatic sluggishness that makes the car feel heavier than it is. It also turns a future clutch job into a known repair instead of making you worry about an old automatic failure. Clean stock manual XBs are getting scarce because many were lowered, stickered, abused, or kept by people who already know what they own. Price range usually runs around $4,000 to $9,000 with clean, unmodified manuals near the top. Compare that to a used crossover with higher insurance, bigger tires, and more suspension weight, and the box starts making sense. Inspection protocol is serious. Check clutch bite, shifter feel, hacked wiring, cut springs, rust, wheel bearings, exhaust leaks, valve cover seepage, power steering noise, and uneven tire wear. Look under the cargo floor for moisture and accident repairs, because weird little boxes often get used harder than they look. Change gearbox oil and replace worn engine mounts so the shifts stay clean, tight, and predictable. If the motor rocks badly when you ease on and off the throttle, the mounts are tired, and every shift will feel worse. A stock XB is the prize. A slammed one with mystery wiring is somebody else's project. Also, check the clutch pedal feel in traffic, not just in a parking lot. A tired clutch can feel acceptable cold, then get grabby, stinky, and vague once heat builds. The next manual truck is bigger, tougher, and still simpler than most new pickups. Number 3. Nissan Frontier Manual, 2005 to 2019. Old school truck bones feel honest when the market is full of oversized, overpriced pickups packed with screens and payment pain. The 2005 to 2019 Nissan Frontier Manual is not fancy, but that is the whole point. Look for 4-cylinder work trucks if you want cheap duty, or clean 4-liter V66 trucks if you need more muscle. Avoid rusty off-road builds, cheap lift kits, and anything that looks like it spent weekends bouncing off rocks. The manual helps longevity because it avoids automatic cooler worries, shift complaints, and heat problems, while giving direct control under load, on dirt roads, or when backing a trailer. It also keeps repair logic old school: clutch, gear oil, hydraulics, mounts, and driver habits. Manual mid-sized trucks are getting rare fast, and clean stock Frontiers are already being grabbed by people who know new trucks can cost $35,000 or more. Price range usually sits around $7,000 to $18,000, depending on cab, drivetrain, miles, rust, and engine. That sounds wide because the condition decides everything about trucks. A scratched but frame-clean Frontier is better than a shiny one with crusty rails. Check clutch slip, gear grind, transfer case operation if 4-wheel drive, frame rust, rear differential noise, axle seals, suspension wear, brake lines, and bed damage. If you are cross-shopping older automatics, also check radiator history, but the manual avoids that worry directly. Service transmission and differential fluids together, especially if the truck towed, hauled, or ran dirt roads. On the drive, second and third gear should feel smooth, not crunchy. The clutch should not chatter, smell burnt, or grab at the very top. 4-wheel drive should engage without drama. Listen for a rear whine at highway speed and clunks over rough pavement. The Frontier wins because it does real truck work without modern truck nonsense. It will not ride plush, and it will not impress the neighbor with luxury trim. Good. It is a tool, and tools should be reliable, simple, and paid for. One more driveway check. Crawl under the rear bumper and look at the spare tire carrier, hitch, and leaf spring mounts. Work trucks hide abuse underneath, where sellers hope you will not look. If the shifter feels clean and the frame looks solid, this truck earns attention. The next one is the enthusiast pick, and prices already prove people woke up. Number 2. Honda Civic Si 2009 to 2011. High-revving Hondas are not just fun, they are becoming scarce, desirable, and expensive. The 2009 to 2011 Civic Si sedan or coupe is the manual Honda people regret passing on. We want clean cars with boring records, no cheap tunes, no slam suspension, no rough track history, and no owner story that starts with "it just needs." The engine is the 2-liter K20Z3 iVTEC 4-cylinder with a 6-speed manual and helical limited slip differential. It makes around 197 horsepower and loves revs, but the manual is the whole point. It matches the engine, avoids automatic drama completely, and rewards clean shifting. This is not a commuter Corolla with a stick. This is a real enthusiast Honda, and that means inspection matters twice as much. Clean 8th generation C cars are no longer just cheap Civics. Stock ones are disappearing, and the modified leftovers are usually cheaper for a reason. Price range often runs $8,000 to $16,000, with clean stock cars getting painful for buyers who waited too long. Check clutch slip, second and third gear grind, synchro feel, engine mounts, VTEC engagement, oil consumption, suspension modifications, rust, accident repairs, and RV6 happy abuse. Listen for grinding on quick second to third shifts. Feel for a clutch that grabs too high. Watch for cheap coilovers, loud exhaust, sketchy intakes, and mismatched tires. Use proper Honda manual transmission fluid and never ignore gear grind because synchro wear does not heal itself. A newer sporty compact can cost 30 grand, but a clean Si gives a simpler, naturally aspirated manual Honda experience with a community that knows every rattle and fix. Honest warning, do not buy the cheapest Si. Buy the stock with boring records. The cheap one usually became cheap because somebody had already spent its future. Check the oil level before and after the drive, and look for smoke after a hard pull. A healthy Si should feel sharp, eager, and balanced, not loose, raspy, or half-broken. If the seller brags about redline in every sentence, assume the car lived there too. If you find a clean one that shifts cleanly, pulls strong, and has proof of care, do not wait forever. Number one is the manual car everybody says they will buy someday, right before prices run away. And remember, manuals reward patient drivers. If every shift feels forced, noisy, or notchy, the car is telling you the previous owner treated the gearbox like a toy instead of a machine. That warning matters more than fresh wax anyway. Subscribe if you want smarter used car picks without dealership smoke. We compare manuals, repairs, prices, and real ownership before you buy. Number 1. Mazda Miata NC Manual 2006 to 2015. Regret usually shows up after prices climb, and the NC Miata Manual is exactly that kind of car. For years, people called it the soft Miata, the bigger Miata, the forgotten one, and they kept waiting. Now, clean manuals are getting harder to find because buyers have finally noticed the simple recipe. We want 2006 to 2015 NC Miata manuals in sport, touring, grand touring, or club trim, as long as the car is stock, clean, and not beaten by cheap track weekends. Under the hood is a 2-liter 4-cylinder with a 5-speed or 6-speed manual, depending on trim and year. That setup is light, direct, and honest. No factory turbo, no complicated all-wheel drive, no heavy drivetrain, no huge curb weight beating up brakes, tires, clutch, and suspension. The manual helps longevity because it matches the whole point of the car. You feel what the drivetrain is doing, you control the revs, and you are not waiting for some tired automatic to decide how the car should move. Price range usually runs from $8,000 to $18,000, with clean power retractable hardtop cars and low-mile examples climbing higher. That is the scarcity warning. The NC used to be the affordable Miata. That window is closing. Manual roadsters are nearly gone from normal used car lots, and every year more clean ones get modified, tracked, wrecked, or stored by people who know what they have. Inspection matters. Check clutch slip, gear grind, shifter feel, differential noise, soft top or power retractable hardtop function, water leaks, rust, radiator color, coolant history, and signs of track abuse. A brown, brittle radiator is a warning. Overheating is not something to shrug at on a Miata. These cars forgive miles better than heat damage. Change transmission and differential fluid together, and never ignore the coolant condition. On a warm test drive, the shifter should feel clean, snappy, and confident, not crunchy or vague. Listen for whining from the rear, clunks over bumps, and rattles that sound like worn suspension. Check the top for leaks by looking behind the seats and in the trunk area. Also, inspect tire wear, brake feel, and alignment. because a hard-driven Miata tells on itself through the corners. Uneven tires, blue brake hardware, cracked bushings, and a seller bragging about track days all change the price. None of that makes the car bad, but it means you negotiate like an adult, not a fanboy. I like stock wheels, clean fluids, normal ride height, and an owner who kept receipts. That story beats shiny paint every time. A new fun manual can cost 30 grand or more. The NC gives rear-wheel drive, low weight, cheap consumables, and a machine that still feels alive at legal speeds. That is why it is number one. It proves manuals are not just nostalgia. They are about keeping the car simple, connected, and easier to keep alive. If you find a clean one, do not wait forever. Waiting is how people get priced out. Buyer rule close. Manual cars are not automatically good. A slipping clutch, grinding synchros, rusty frame, or abused owner story can ruin the deal fast. Use one rule. Test the clutch hot. Shift every gear cold and warm. Listen for bearing noise. Check fluid history and inspect for modifications. Manuals last when the owner drives clean, changes fluid, and does not rest a foot on the clutch. The best manual is not the cheapest one. It is the one with a clean drivetrain story and boring records. That is how manual buyers stay ahead, while automatic shoppers inherit bigger, costlier problems from owners who never cared about service. If this saves you money, subscribe. We show reliable manuals, costly traps, and simple checks before good stick-shift cars disappear. Click the video on your screen next. We'll show manual cars that are already getting expensive. Subscribe for reliable picks, smarter buying, and no dealer smoke.